This video is about a retired hobby machinist in 2002 building scale model Gatling guns in a home workshop. These were fabricated from scrap metal, wood, time, and talent. Back in 2002, Larry Purcell stopped by Barnes & Noble to look at the latest machinist magazines, and when he was looking through the magazine for projects and tooling and ideas, and he came across this ad for Gatling gun plans. So it was for a 1/3 scale set of plans, and for something that, according to the ad, says that it's a working set and it can shoot 22 shorts. So he gets a check for $46.95 and sends it off, and a few weeks later in the mail comes a set of plans. Some of the plan details. This one is just an assembly drawing, and the detail here is the bolt assembly. Of course, it uses 8 bolts, and there are 6 parts to a bolt, and the bolt housing itself is an extraordinarily complex piece of machining. And the work on the Gatling gun took 2 years, from day one till he was finished. It was almost exactly 2 years. You can see a lot of these drawings have a lot of markups on them, and most of what I saw during those 2 years was the work was done on the wood, so I can maybe talk more to the carriage assembly than I can to the really complex machining of the Gatling gun itself. So here in the carriage is a drawing for the wheel assembly. Each of the outer wheel segments are an arc here, so there would be 8 of these that would be clamped together and machined out, and you can see that each one is drilled out for a mortise pin for the spokes, and eventually when these things are cut out, then there is a steel band that would get attached around that assembly. The spokes, there are 16 spokes, and these are quite complex. You can see that the spoke here, the cross section at the hub side of the spoke, is a perfect circle. It's a 1/2 inch diameter here, narrows down a little bit, and then extends out, so the spoke itself becomes an oval shape. So let's take a look at what the carriage assembly looks like on one of the Gatling guns. We've got one in the shop here. So here's one of the Gatling guns. And we were talking about the wheel and spoke assembly. And what's interesting here on the way these things are put together is that these spokes are not glued in. They're held in just pressure. And just to mention the bolts themselves, these were all machine made here. Every detail, every piece except for just a very few small gears and bolts were made in this shop. So another thing that I wanted to show, you'll see this in some of the video, is this little plug here provides access for the bolts. The bolts were tuned for each position inside of this assembly, so that bolt 1 needs to go in the assigned bolt 1 position. And that, because of the head spacing, was finessed for that bolt in that position. This plug comes out, and so if you need to work on the bolts, or in this case you need to insert them, then this is how you insert the bolts. And then this one is locked in place. I can't crank it, but you would crank this and you would expose the next slot for the next bolt and put it in place until you've got all 10 bolts in place. In some of the video from back in 2002, 2003, you'll see the gears that are in here, the worm gear on the crank, and then the gear for the barrel assembly. The barrels themselves are made from 1022 barrels. They were bought as just barrels that people had put on eBay, and then they were cut to length, and they were actually cut on both ends, and then they were turned down to the diameters needed. There was a hex that was cut on the edge of them, so you can get a tool on there to tighten them into the breech assembly, and then they were crowned, and they also had to have the cut for the brass on this end. The original Gatling gun had just a stick magazine on it, which is what you would expect to see. Then there were plans that were sent for later that were for this multi-round assembly, and these things they drop in just like a regular stick mag, except that this can be indexed around, manually indexed, then locked into position, and then this is a weight that follows the rounds, so the rounds will be loaded in there. And after you've exhausted that position, you lift up, index, lock it down again, go for the next stack of rounds. So the first Gatling gun had originally the stick mag, and then this was made for it, and then 2 more Gatling guns were made, and they only had this magazine assembly. So I'd mentioned that in 2002, when Larry first saw this ad and decided to make one of the Gatling guns, and it took him 2 years of work to build a gun. And after he had finished it, he thought, well, I've marked up all the drawings, I've found all the errors, made any modifications that he wanted to make. He's made a lot of tooling for it, and he thought, I bet I could make 2 more in the same length of time, 2 more guns in 2 more years. So he started making 2 guns, both at the same time. And it didn't take him 2 years, it took him another 4 years. So he spent from 2002 to 2008 making 3 Gatling guns, a full 2 years for each gun. In 2002, I had a Sony 8mm camcorder that I sometimes had with me when visiting Larry's shop. It was on these occasions that I recorded some of the early Gatling gun testing and tweaking. When Larry first took his completed gun out to the test range, he fully expected a successful test fire. Setting a single 22 short cartridge and turning the crank handle resulted in nothing. A quiet click. A dented cartridge fell on the deck under the gun. Another try.
Well,
And the round jammed. Another try. Another click.
what are you doing?
So back to the shop where the Gatling gun is disassembled. Dimensions and fit are checked, evaluated. There's a little tweaking, but everything looked good and ran smooth. So all was reassembled and back out to the test range.
There she went. Okay. Make sure a bullet will fit in there now. Yep.
Okay?
Ready. Drop the shell out, but didn't shoot it. That's it.
More trials in the test range, different bolts, different chambers, and nothing.
What are you doing?
Back to the shop. One thought was that a firing pin had too large of a surface. So in this video segment you can see that the bolt assembly is being disassembled and the tip of the firing pin is being slightly ground down.
Be hard to
Put the spring stronger.
The process went on well longer than the times that I was there visiting. Ultimately, Larry determined the issue to be bolt head spacing. Each bolt was fit checked and refined to its own place in the breech ring and fit for proper head spacing. In the end, 3 guns were done, and the project was complete and they were set aside. New projects replaced old. For a long time after the Gatling guns were complete, they sat in line on a bench in the shop. This display was always something fascinating to the visitors who stopped by the shop. In 2005, the Machinists Club had a display at the Western Museum of Mining and Industry. They invited Larry to bring his Gatling gun and display it along with the many other projects. In 2011, Larry decided that he wanted to have his picture taken with all 3 Gatling guns, so he moved the guns outside to a picturesque fence line near the shop. He removed the magazine on the original build gun, replacing it with a stick mag.